Members. Link.
Welcome
Actions
to
available.
Understanding the IPCC number 10. Working Group 3, Mitigation of Climate Change. Normally at this part, I start talking about the premises of these things. I quote Carl Sagan.
A talking game.
Go on at length about things introductory, but as you know, as this is the fourth in a 4-part series, which had all those introductions in part A, this is part D. I'm not doing that again, so if you want to see that stuff, go back to part A.
Barefoot Freelance website. A talking game YouTube channel. 403.
This is
A talking game
a
at
talking
Barefoot
game.
Freelance. Car.
Presenting this through my business, A Talking Game, which is a diversity and inclusion facilitation business. And
a talking game YouTube channel.
From here, you can
Visited.
go to the YouTube
link.
channel, and what that
Actions
does
available.
for you, again,
Customize channel button. Link.
If this is your first video in this series, you're starting at the very wrong place because this is the very last one for some period of time. It's number 10 of 10 so far. So this YouTube channel.
Introducing the IPCC, number 6, the special report on the ocean
6.
and crop, page 2 of 2.
Down to number 1.
Introduction from Indigenous White, 7th bullet. 8 months ago. Action menu. Who they are. Number 1. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and their 2018 synthesis report by A Talking Game 9 months ago. 1 hour. 7 minutes 61 views.
So
heading level 3.
Both in that video, which says number 1, is about who they are, and what they say is the next one.
61 bullet. 9 months ago. Action menu. What they say. Number 2. The IPCC's Working Group 1, on the physical science basis of their reports by A Talking Game 9 months ago. 1 hour. 48 minutes 208 views.
So both
heading
of those,
level 3.
Both of those videos have lengthy introductions, and they're also designed to set up all the parameters for the rest of the stuff, so I'm not going to go into the rest of this stuff. So either go there and look at the stuff, or be prepared to be completely left out in the ocean trying to figure out why you're listening to my iPad, why I'm skipping things and showing graphics in the way I am. Or you can just wander through and take it as you can. I mean, it's a free world, right? Get rid of that. Get rid of that.
What to do. Number 3. The toll-free in North America. Contact us. Contact us. Is 30% larger than its nearest relative. End. Article. End. Main. App switcher. Files. Books. Active.
So having said that,
Books.
Let's go right into
Books. Page.
So,
1 of
as
1.
I've mentioned a few times before, I've created an index page to allow you to find your way around, because this is the fourth. It's a total of 5.5 hours of video on this report alone, the Working Group 3 Mitigation of Climate Change. I think it was 2014 they released this particular report. It's 1,400 pages, I forget, 12, 14, something like that. So I've created this index page. As I've also said at least 3 times before, and another time before that, I focus both on accessibility and usability. So I've got the timings of each page.
Chapter 2 integrate part A minus 40 pages. 8 15/page. 15 chapters.
So
4 parts.
15 chapters and 4 parts in this report. What is it, 40 pages of material that we go through on screen. Each page, I've got 8 1/4 minutes here to read through each page. I'm beginning to think, I didn't retime it, I think it's less than that. I think it's like 7 1/4 or 7 3/4 minutes. In any event, when you're in today's section, part D, if you're 2 chapters in and you want to know how to get to the next chapter, because that's the one that interests you, you can do the math. I will include all the timings in the notes on YouTube, and also all of the notes for credentials, where to find the page that this comes from. It occurs to me, I didn't show you the IPCC page. Well, by this point, I should hope you know where it is. It's www.ipcc.ch. In any event, to make this accessible as well to people who are just listening for whatever reason, I'm going to have this read this index page to you, so maybe take a screen capture of this if you want to keep track of where you are as you're listening to this report today, or make notes as it's being read to you, and then we'll move on into the actual chapters.
Chapter 13, AR5 Climate Change 2014, Mitigation of Climate Change. The Working Group 3 Contribution to the IPCC's Fifth Assessment Report, AR5, assesses literature on the scientific, technological, environmental, economic and social aspects of mitigation of climate change since 2007, when the Fourth Assessment Report, AR4, was released. -40 pages, 15/page, 15 chapters, 4 parts. Part A 9 PGS. Chapter 2 Integrated Risk and Uncertainty Assessment of Climate Change Response Policies 3 PGS. Chapter 12 Human Settlements, Infrastructure and Spatial Planning 3 PGS. Chapter 3 Social, Economic and Ethical Concepts and Methods 3 PGS. Part B 9 PGS. Chapter 11 Agriculture, Forestry and Other Land Use, AFOLU, 2 PGS. Chapter 4 Sustainable Development and Equity 2 PGS. Chapter 10 Industry 2 PGS. Chapter 5 Drivers, Trends and Mitigation 3 PGS. Part C 12 PGS. Chapter 9 Buildings 3 PGS. Chapter 6 Assessing Transformation Pathways 3 PGS. Chapter 8 Transport 3 PGS. Chapter 13 International Cooperation, Agreements and Instruments 3 PGS. Part D 10 PGS. Chapter 7 Energy Systems 3 PGS. Chapter 14 Regional Development and Cooperation 3 PGS. Chapter 15 National and Subnational Policies and Institutions 3 PGS. Chapter 16 Cross-Cutting Investment and Finance Issues 1 PGS.
And that last part is where we are today. So once we're done until I find more reports to bury you in. However, at this point,
Library button.
Let's begin in earnest.
Library SPM summary for show act new glock errata annex to 14 15 national and toolbar page direct regulatory of chapter 15. National and subnational policies and institutions. Executive summary. Since the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, Fourth Assessment Report, AR4, there has been a marked increase in national policies and legislation on climate change. However, these policies, taken together, have not yet achieved a substantial deviation in emissions from the past trend. Many baseline scenarios, those without additional policies to reduce emissions, show GHG concentrations that exceed 1000 ppm CO2 by 2100, which is far from a concentration with a likely probability of maintaining temperature increases below 2 degrees Celsius this century. Mitigation scenarios suggest that a wide range of environmentally effective policies could be enacted that would be consistent with such goals. This chapter assesses national and subnational policies and institutions to mitigate climate change in this context. It assesses the strengths and weaknesses of various mitigation policy instruments and policy packages and how they may interact either positively or negatively. Sector-specific policies are assessed in greater detail in the individual sector chapters, 7-12. Major findings are summarized as follows. Section 15.1. The design of institutions affects the choice and feasibility of policy options as well as the sustainable financing of climate change mitigation measures. Limited evidence, medium agreement. By shaping appropriate incentives, creating space for new stakeholders in decision-making, and by transforming the understanding of policy choices, institutions designed to encourage participation by representatives of new industries and technologies can facilitate transitions to low-emission pathways, while institutions inherited unchanged from the past can perpetuate lock into high-carbon development paths. 15.2, 15.6. There has been a considerable increase in national and subnational mitigation plans and strategies since AR4, medium evidence, high agreement. These plans and strategies are in their early stages of development and implementation in many countries, making it difficult to assess whether and how they will result in appropriate institutional and policy change, and thus their impact on future emissions. However, to date these policies, taken together, have not yet achieved a substantial deviation in emissions from the past trend. Theories of institutional change suggest they might play a role in shaping incentives, political contexts, and policy paradigms in a way that encourages emissions reductions in the future. 15.1, 15.2. Sector-specific policy. Screen recording in progress. Wednesday, March, 12:25 p.m. The design of national and sub. Chapter 15. Since the design of there has been a considerable increase in national and subnational mitigation plans and strategies since AR4, medium evidence, high agreement. These plans and strategies are in their early stages of development and implementation in many countries, making it difficult to assess whether and how they will result in appropriate institutional and policy change, and thus their impact on future emissions. However, to date these policies, taken together, have not yet achieved a substantial deviation in emissions from the past trend. Theories of institutional change suggest they might play a role in shaping incentives, political contexts, and policy paradigms in a way that encourages emissions reductions in the future. 15.1, 15. Sector-specific policies have been more widely used than economy-wide, market-based policies medium evidence, high agreement. Although economic theory suggests that economy-wide market-based policies for the singular objective of mitigation would generally be more cost-effective than sector-specific policies, political economy considerations often make economy-wide policies harder to design and implement than sector-specific policies. Sector-specific policies may also be needed to overcome sectoral market failures that price policies do not address. For example, building codes can require publicly funded energy-efficient investments where private investments would otherwise not exist. Sector approaches also allow for packages of complementary policies, as, for example, in transport, where pricing policies that raise the cost of carbon-intensive forms of private transport are more effective when backed by public investment in viable alternatives. 15.1, 15.2, 15.5, 15.8, 15.9. Direct regulatory approaches and information measures are widely used, and are often environmentally effective, though debate remains on the extent of their environmental impacts and cost-effectiveness. Medium evidence, medium agreement. Examples of regulatory approaches include energy efficiency standards. Examples of information programs include labeling programs that can help consumers make better informed decisions. While such approaches often work at a net social benefit, the scientific literature is divided on whether such policies are implemented with negative private costs to firms and individuals. Since AR4 there has been continued investigation into rebound effects that arise when higher efficiency leads to lower energy prices and greater consumption. There is general agreement that such rebound effects exist, but there is low agreement in the literature on the magnitude. 3, 9, 5, 8.3, 9, 7, 2, 4, 15.5.4, 15.5.5. Fuel taxes are an example of a sector-specific policy and are often originally put in place for objectives such as revenue. They are not necessarily designed for the purpose of climate change mitigation. High confidence. In Europe, where fuel taxes are highest, they have contributed to reductions in carbon emissions from the transport sector of roughly 50% for this group of countries. The short-run response to higher fuel prices is often small, but long-run price elasticities are quite high, or roughly -0.6 to -0.8. This means that in the long run, 10% higher fuel prices correlate with 7% reduction in fuel use and emissions. In the transport sector, taxes have the advantage of being progressive or neutral in most countries and strongly progressive in low-income countries. 15.5.2. Reduction of subsidies to fossil energy can result in significant emission reductions at negative social cost. High confidence. 15.5.2. Although political economy barriers are substantial, Many countries have reformed their tax and budget systems to reduce fuel subsidies that actually accrue to the relatively wealthy, and utilized lump sum cash transfers or other mechanisms that are more targeted to the poor. 15.5.3 Cap and trade systems for greenhouse gases are being established in a growing number of countries and regions. Limited evidence, medium agreement. Their environmental effect has so far been limited because caps have either been loose or have not yet been binding. There appears to have been a trade-off between the political feasibility and environmental effectiveness of these programs, as well as between political feasibility and distributional equity in the allocation of permits. Greater environmental effectiveness through a tighter cap may be combined with a price ceiling that makes for political feasibility. 15.5.3 15. 1147. 15. Carbon taxes have been implemented in some countries and, alongside technology and other policies, have contributed to decoupling of emissions from gross domestic product, GDP, high confidence. Differentiation by sector, which is quite common, reduces cost effectiveness that arises from the changes in production methods, consumption patterns, lifestyle shifts, and technology development. But it may increase political feasibility, or be preferred for reasons of competitiveness or distributional equity. In some countries, high carbon and fuel taxes have been made politically feasible by refunding revenues or by lowering other taxes in an environmental fiscal reform. 15.2, 15.5.2, 15.5.3.
I thought...
App switcher. Files. Figure underscore files. Done. Figure underscore 15.1. A bar graph with text and numbers.
Yay, bar graphs. I thought at first I was going to be able to drop all the parenthetical accreditations at the end of the paragraphs because they were at the end of the paragraphs. And then, of course, a couple of them were in the middle. So that ended. So
done. List.
Listen to
button.
them, sorry. Don't blame me.
Figure underscore 3, rows 12 to rows 20, rows 30, figure underscore 11.3, rows 40, figure underscore 13.4, figure underscore 14, figure underscore 15.2, PNG image 56, done, button. Figure underscore 15.2, a screenshot of a graph with text and numbers, possible text.
I mean,
5
it is an
0
interpretation.
1
Oh,
5
right.
0 2 app switcher Safari books active books pay adding a carbon taxes 15 carbon tax adding a mitigation policy to another may not necessarily enhance mitigation. High confidence. For instance, if a cap and trade system has a sufficiently stringent cap, then other policies such as renewable subsidies have no further impact on total emissions, although they may affect costs and possibly the viability of more stringent future targets. If the cap is loose relative to other policies, it becomes ineffective. This is an example of a negative interaction between policy instruments. Since other policies cannot be added onto a cap and trade system, if it is to meet any particular target, a sufficiently low cap is necessary. A carbon tax, on the other hand, can have an additive environmental effect to policies such as subsidies to renewables. 15.7. There is a distinct role for technology policy as a complement to other mitigation policies. High confidence. Properly implemented technology policies reduce the cost of achieving a given environmental target. Technology policy will be most effective when technology push policies e.g. publicly funded research and development R&D, and demand pull policies e.g. governmental procurement programs or performance regulations, are used in a complementary fashion. Robust evidence, high agreement. 15.6. While technology push and demand pull policies are necessary, they are unlikely to be sufficient without complementary framework conditions. Managing social challenges of technology policy change may require innovations in policy and institutional design, including building integrated policies that make complementary use of market incentives, authority and norms. Medium evidence, medium agreement. 15.6.5. Since AR4, a large number of countries and subnational jurisdictions have introduced support policies for renewable energy such as feed-in tariffs, FIT, and Renewable Portfolio Standards, RPS. These have promoted substantial diffusion and innovation of new energy technologies such as wind turbines and photovoltaic, PV, panels, but have raised questions about their economic efficiency, and introduced challenges for grid and market integration, 7.12, 15.6. Worldwide investment in research in support of climate change mitigation is small relative to overall public research spending, medium evidence, medium agreement. The effectiveness of research support will be greatest if it is increased slowly and steadily rather than dramatically or erratically. It is important that data collection for program evaluation be built into technology policy programs, because there is very little empirical evidence on the relative effectiveness of different mechanisms for supporting the creation and diffusion of new technologies. 15.6.2, 15.6.5. Public finance mechanisms reduce risks that deter climate investments, high confidence. The future value of carbon permits created by an economic instrument such as cap and trade may, for example, not be accepted as sufficiently secure by banks. Government public finance mechanisms to reduce risks include debt and equity mechanisms, carbon finance, and innovative grants. 15.12. Government planning and provision can facilitate shifts to less energy and GHG-intensive infrastructure and lifestyles, high confidence. This applies particularly when there are indivisibilities in the provision of infrastructure as in the energy sector, e.g., for electricity transmission and distribution or district heating networks, in the transport sector, e.g., for non-motorized or public transport, and in urban planning. The provision of adequate infrastructure is important for behavioral change, medium evidence, high agreement, 15.5.6. Successful voluntary agreements on mitigation between governments and industries are characterized by a strong institutional framework with capable industrial associations, medium evidence, medium agreement. The strengths of voluntary agreements are speed and flexibility in phasing measures, and facilitation of barrier removal activities for energy efficiency and low-emission technologies. Regulatory threats, even though the threats are not always explicit, are also an important factor for firms to be motivated. There are few environmental impacts without a proper institutional framework, medium evidence, medium agreement, 15.5.5. Synergies and trade-offs between mitigation and adaptation policies may exist in the land use sector, medium evidence, medium agreement. For other sectors such as industry and power, the connections are not obvious, 15.11. The ability to undertake policy action requires information, knowledge, tools, and skills, and therefore capacity building is central both for mitigation and to the Sustainable Development Agenda, medium evidence, high agreement. The needs for capacity building include capacity to analyze the implications of climate change, capacity to formulate, implement, and evaluate policies, capacity to take advantage of external funding and flexible mechanisms, and capacity to make informed choices of the various capacity building modalities. 15.10. Mainstreaming climate change into development planning has helped yield financing for various climate policy initiatives, medium evidence, medium agreement. Among developing and some least developed countries, an emerging trend is the establishment of national funding entities dedicated to climate change. While diverse in design and objectives, they tap and blend into national and subnational policies and institutions. Chapter 15. 1148. Chapter 15. National and subnational policies and institutions. Sources of finance, thereby helping to improve policy coherence and address aid fragmentation. Financing adaptation and mitigation in developing countries is crucial from the viewpoint of welfare and equity, medium evidence, high agreement, 15.12. Gaps in knowledge, The fact that various jurisdictions produce various policy instruments influenced by co-benefits and political economy and that they interact in complex manners makes it difficult to evaluate the economic and environmental effectiveness of individual policy instrument as well as policy package of a nation. Most importantly, it is not known with certainty how much an emission reduction target may cost to the economy in the real world in comparison to the first best optimal solution estimated by economic models in other chapters in this report. Costs may be understated or overstated.
Okay.
Library. Button. Library. Back button.
As usual.
14 regional develop. 8 transport. 7 energy systems. Unknown author.
Again and again and again.
17%
These are their
finished.
chapters.
Button.
Here they are. If you want to get
Actions
downloads
available.
of these, their website. I didn't actually show it to you yet, did I? No. But I will be showing it to you. And you can find all this stuff there. Download it happily and title it however you wish to.
Toolbar. Page.
So,
6 of 88.
since,
App switcher. Safari. TyrrellMuseum.com. Safari.
So, this is actually a shorter report. Not a shorter report. It's a shorter... Anyway, never mind.
Contact us.
It's a commercial.
Heading level home.
It's a commercial
Visited.
for the
Link.
Royal
Image.
Tyrrell...
White text on a grade. The museum is temporarily closed.
Yeah, we know.
Page 1 of 4.
Where is it?
Page 3 of 4.
Royal Tyrrell Museum of Paleontology. I've been showing stuff from them during this report as a commercial break.
Contact us. Toll 1. Toll
Looking for...
3. Page 4 of meetup.com. Search it. Membership.
Oh, wait a
Link.
minute.
Selected. Erased things.
Oh, rats. The bookmarks are open.
Wednesday. Toolbar. Selected. Show bookmarks. Understanding
No.
the toolbar. Forward. Selected. Search.
let's get rid of
Button. Google Map link.
All right.
Link. 6 kilometers. Page 2
Try
of
it again.
Triassic_giant_ exhibit. Image. At 21 Shonisaurus sicanensis. Separator. This exhibit is Shonisaurus featuring Cenozoic Gallery.
So,
Visited. Featuring the world Dinosaur Hall. Cretaceous Garden. Triassic Giant.
the Triassic
Visited.
Giant is the one I'm
Link.
going to show you today. You can see what it
Dinosaur
says.
Hall. Cenozoic Gallery. Featuring the world's largest marine reptile. Article.
So
Landmark.
this is just a moment, you know, if you need to take, we're about probably 20 minutes in now. It's good to take a break now. Pause this. Go get your whatever you need to get to keep going. If it's air or sunlight or caffeine or sugar or water or some other supplement, I'm not going to judge. And as for the Tyrrell Museum commercial, I just decided to take this little thing here.
Shonisaurus sicanensis.
Whatever that is.
This exhibit is a special tribute to our former curator of marine reptiles, the late Dr. Elizabeth Betsy Nichols. The specimen was discovered in the early 1990s along the bank of the Sicany Chief River in northeastern British Columbia. At first, its massive size and remote location deterred scientists from excavating the specimen. Dr. Nichols and her crew recognized its scientific value, as well as its vulnerability due to a high risk of damage from submersion. It took 3 field sessions, 1999 to 2001, to excavate this Triassic giant from its remote resting place. Separator. Triassic_giant_exhibit. Image.
So
A
there's
group of
apparently the
blue
image.
text on a white background. Possible text. Iron. Oik Gallery. At 21 meters long, the ichthyosaur, Shonisaurus sicanensis, is 30% larger than its nearest relative. End. Article. End. Main. End. Main.
21 meters long. Yeah, I remember this from the museum. It's frightening because it's 60 feet long. That's longer than a bus. I don't know if you've thought about that. 60 feet. Sorry, meters. It says meters. If you're good with meters, then 21 meters means something to you. I know it's about the size of a bus I used to take to go skiing. Not something you want to meet in the water. So, in any event, the Royal Tyrrell Museum of Paleontology, Drumheller, Alberta, they might be opening up a bit right now. Their site is here, again, linked in the comments. Commercial break is over. We'll go back to work in like whatever
App
we're
switcher.
working like.
Files. Books. Active. Books. The energy books. The energy 7. Executive summary.
Oh.
7. Bookmark. Search. Appearance. Markup. 7. Energy systems. Heading.
Chapter 7 is energy systems.
Markup. Appear. Search. Bookmarked. 7. Executive summary. The energy systems chapter addresses issues related to the mitigation of greenhouse gas emissions, GHG, from the energy supply sector. The energy supply sector, as defined in this report, comprises all energy extraction, conversion, storage, transmission, and distribution processes that deliver final energy to the end-use sectors, industry, transport, and building, as well as agriculture and forestry. Demand-side measures in the energy end-use sectors are discussed in chapters 8-11. The energy supply sector is the largest contributor to global greenhouse gas emissions, robust evidence, high agreement. In 2010, the energy supply sector was responsible for approximately 35% of total anthropogenic GHG emissions. Despite the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, and the Kyoto Protocol, GHG emissions grew more rapidly between 2000 and 2010 than in the previous decade. Annual GHG emissions growth in the global energy supply sector accelerated from 1.7% per year from 1990 to 2000 to 3.1% per year from 2000 to 2010. The main contributors to this trend were a higher energy demand associated with rapid economic growth and an increase of the share of coal in the global fuel mix, 7.3. In the baseline scenarios assessed in AR5, direct CO2 emissions of the energy supply sector increase from 144 gigatons CO2/year in 2010 to 24-33 gigatons CO2/year in 2050, 25 75th percentile, full range 15-42 gigatons CO2/year. With most of the baseline scenarios assessed in AR5 showing a significant increase, medium evidence, medium agreement. The lower end of the full range is dominated by scenarios with a focus on energy intensity improvements that go well beyond the observed improvements over the past 40 years. The availability of fossil fuels alone will not be sufficient to limit CO2 equivalent, CO2 concentrations to levels such as 450 ppm, 550 ppm, or 650 ppm. 6, 3, 4, Figures 6.15, 7.4, 7.11.1, Figure TS15. Multiple options exist to reduce energy supply sector GHG emissions, robust evidence, high agreement. These include energy efficiency improvements and fugitive emission reductions in fuel extraction as well as in energy conversion, transmission, and distribution systems, fossil fuel switching, and low GHG energy supply technologies such as renewable energy, nuclear power, and carbon dioxide capture and storage, CCS, 7.5, 7, 8, 1, 7. The stabilization of GHG concentrations at low levels requires a fundamental transformation of the energy supply system, including the long-term substitution of unabated fossil fuel conversion technologies by low GHG alternatives, robust EV, dense, high agreement. Concentrations of CO2 in the atmosphere can only be stabilized if global, net, CO2 emissions peak and decline toward zero in the long term. Improving the energy efficiencies of fossil power plants or the shift from coal to gas will not by itself be sufficient to achieve this. Low GHG energy supply technologies are found to be necessary if this goal is to be achieved. 7, 5, 1, 7, 8, 1. Decarbonizing, i.e. reducing the carbon intensity of electricity generation is a key component of cost-effective mitigation strategies in achieving low stabilization levels, 430-530 ppm CO2 in most integrated modeling scenarios. Decarbonization happens more rapidly in electricity generation than in the industry, buildings and transport sectors. Medium evidence, high agreement. In the majority of low stabilization scenarios, the share of low carbon electricity supply, comprising nuclear and CCS, increases from the current share of approximately 30% to more than 80% by 2050, and fossil fuel power generation without CCS is phased out almost entirely by 2100, 7.11. Since the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, Fourth Assessment Report, AR4, many re-technologies have demonstrated substantial performance improvements and cost reductions. And a growing number of re-technologies have achieved a level of maturity to enable deployment at significant scale, robust evidence, high agreement. Some technologies are already economically competitive in various settings. While the levelized cost of photovoltaic (PV) systems fell most substantially between 2009 and 2012, a less marked trend has been observed for many other re-technologies. Regarding electricity generation alone, RE accounted for just over half of the new electricity generating capacity added globally in 2012, led by growth in wind, hydro, and solar power. Decentralized resupply to meet rural energy needs has also increased, including various modern and advanced traditional biomass options as well as small hydropower, PV, and wind. Re-technology policies have been successful in driving the recent growth of RE. Nevertheless, many re-technologies still need direct support, e.g., feed-in tariffs, re-quota obligations, and tendering/bidding, and/or indirect support, e.g., sufficiently high carbon prices and the internalization of other externalities, if their market shares are to be significantly increased. Additional enabling policies are needed to address issues associated with the integration of RE into future energy systems, medium evidence, medium agreement, 7, 5, 3, 7, 6. There are often co-benefits from the use of RE, such as a reduction of air pollution. There are often co-benefits from the use of RE, such as a reduction of air pollution, local employment opportunities, few severe accidents compared to some other forms of energy supply, as well as improved energy access and security. Medium evidence, medium agreement. At the same time, however, some re-technologies can have technology and location-specific adverse side effects, though those can be reduced to a degree through appropriate technology selection, operational adjustments, and siting of facilities. 7.9. Toolbar. Page Chooser. Page 6. Page 7. GH. Chapter 7. Energy System. Infrastructure and integration challenges vary by re-technology and the characteristics of the existing background energy size. TEM. Medium evidence. Medium agreement. Operating experience and studies of medium to high penetrations of RE indicate that these issues can be managed with various technical and institutional tools. As RE penetrations increase, such issues are more challenging, must be carefully considered in energy supply planning and operations to ensure reliable energy supply, and may result in higher costs. 7.6, 7, 8, 2. Energy systems. Chapter 7. Energy infrastructure and integration challenges vary by re-technology. App switcher. Books. App Safari. Files. Figure files. Done. Button.
In it.
Figure done. List. Button. Figure 3 point. Rows 12 to 20. Rows 20. Figure 9.1. Figure 7.1. PNG image 200 done. Button.
Pardon me.
Figure 7.1. A screenshot of a map with text and numbers.
Maps.
Done. List. Button. Figure 3.2. Rows 12. Rows 20. Figure 9.1. Figure 7.17. Figure 7.1. Figure 7.2. PNG done. Button.
And as usual.
Figure 7.2. A screenshot of a graph with text and numbers.
No, you're not going to see 17 images. You're going to see the first two and the last two.
App switcher. Safari. Safari. Books. Active. Books. Book. Nuclear. Chapters. Energy systems. Infrastructure and integration challenges vary. Nuclear energy is a mature low GHG emission source of base load power, but its share of global electricity generation has been declining. Since 1993, nuclear energy could make an increasing contribution to low-carbon energy supply, but a variety of barriers and risks exist. Robust evidence, high agreement. Its specific emissions are below 100 g CO2 per kWh on a life cycle basis, and with more than 400 operational nuclear reactors worldwide. Nuclear electricity represented 11% of the world's electricity generation in 2012, down from a high of 17% in 1993. Pricing the externally ties of GHG emissions, carbon pricing, could improve the competitiveness of nuclear power plants. 7.2754781. Barriers to and risks associated with an increasing use of nuclear energy include operational risks and the associated safety concerns, uranium mining risks, financial and regulatory risks, unresolved waste management issues, nuclear weapon proliferation concerns, and adverse public opinion. Robust evidence, high agreement. New fuel cycles and reactor technologies addressing some of these issues are under development, and progress has been made concerning safety and waste disposal. Medium evidence, medium agreement. 7.9. Carbon dioxide capture and storage technologies could reduce the life cycle GHG emissions of fossil fuel power plants. Medium evidence, medium agreement. While all components of integrated CCS systems exist and are in use today by the fossil fuel extraction and refining industry, CCS has not yet been applied at scale to a large, commercial fossil fuel power plant. A variety of pilot and demonstrations projects have led to critical advances in the knowledge of CCS systems and related engineering, technical, economic and policy issues. CCS power plants could be seen in the market if they are required for fossil fuel facilities by regulation, or if they become competitive with their unabated counterparts. For instance, if the additional investment and operational costs, caused in part by efficiency reductions, are compensated by sufficiently high carbon prices, or direct financial support. Beyond economic incentives, well-defined regulations concerning short and long-term responsibilities for storage are essential for a large-scale future deployment of CCS. 7.5.5.7.8.1. Barriers to large-scale deployment of CCS technologies include concerns about the operational safety and long-term integrity of CO2 storage, as well as transport risks. Limited evidence, medium agreement. There is, however, a growing body of literature on how to ensure the integrity of CO2 wells, on the potential consequences of a pressure buildup within a geologic formation caused by CO2 storage, such as induced seismicity, and on the potential human health and environmental impacts from CO2 that migrates out of the primary injection zone. Limited evidence, medium agreement. 7.5.5.7.9. Combining bioenergy with CCS, BECCS, offers the prospect of energy supply with large-scale net negative emissions, which plays an important role in many low stabilization scenarios, while it entails challenges and risks. Limited evidence, medium agreement. These challenges and risks include those associated with the upstream provision of the biomass that is used in the CCS facility, as well as those associated with the CCS technology itself. BECCS faces large challenges in financing, and currently no such plants have been built and tested at scale. 7.5.5.7.8.2. GHG emissions from energy supply can be reduced significantly by replacing current world average coal-fired power plants with modern, highly efficient natural gas combined cycle (NGCC) power plants, or combined heat and power (CHP) plants, provided that natural gas is available and the fugitive emissions associated with its extraction and supply are low or mitigated. Robust evidence, high agreement. Life cycle assessments indicate a reduction of specific GHG emissions of approximately 50% for a shift from a current world average coal power plant to a modern NGCC plant, depending on natural gas upstream emissions. Substitution of natural gas for renewable energy forms increases emissions. Mitigation scenarios with low GHG concentration targets, 430-530 ppm CO2 EC, require a fundamental transformation of the energy system in the long term. In mitigation scenarios reaching about 450 ppm CO2 by 2100, natural gas power generation without CCS typically acts as a bridge technology, with deployment increasing before peaking and falling to below current levels by 2050 and declining further in the second half of the century. Robust evidence. High agreement. 7.5.1. 7. Direct GHG emissions from the fossil fuel chain can be reduced through various measures. Medium evidence. High agreement. These include the capture or oxidation of coal bed methane, the reduction of venting and flaring in oil and gas systems, as well as energy efficiency improvements and the use of low GHG energy sources in the fuel chain. 7.5.1. Greenhouse gas emission trading and GHG taxes have been enacted to address the market externalities associated with GHG emissions. High evidence. High agreement. In the longer term, GHG pricing can support the adoption of low GHG energy technologies due to the resulting fuel and technology-dependent markup in marginal costs. Technology policies e.g. feed-in tariffs, quotas, and tendering/bidding have proven successful in increasing the share of re-technologies. Medium evidence. Medium agreement. 7.12. The success of energy policies depends on capacity building, the removal of financial barriers, the development of a solid legal. 7.517. Toolbar. Page chooser. Page 8.
There we go.
Adjustable.
Apparently it's a blank page.
7. Energy system markup. Bookmarked. Bookmarked.
You'll have to accept
Button.
my word for it. Hopefully you can figure out what's on this page. Do with it as you will, because it don't read to me. Anyway.
Library. Button. Library. 7. Energy system. 8. 13 in 14 regional toolbar. Page.
Before we go
4 of
into more of
58.
We got
App
more
switcher.
figures to look
Safari. Files. Figure files. Figure underscore 7.2. Done. List.
Oh.
Button.
7.2? Oh, right.
Done. List. Button.
Little mental blank there.
Figure underscore 3. Rows 12. Rows 20. Figure underscore 9.2. Figure underscore 8. Figure underscore 7.16.
Yes.
Figure underscore 7.2.
There we go.
Figure underscore 7.16. Done.
I remember
Button.
the conversation about...
Figure underscore 7.16. A photo containing a diagram.
4 images, not
Done.
17.
List. Button.
I've got so many numbers
Figure
running around in my
underscore
head at the
2.
moment.
Figure underscore 4.2. Rows 12 to 20. Rows 20. Figure underscore 9. Figure underscore 8. Figure underscore 7.16. Figure underscore 7.2. Figure underscore 7.17.
There we go.
Done. Button. Figure underscore 7.17. A multicolored bar graph with numbers and text. Possible text.
Okie doke.
Image. Message. App switcher. Safari. Books. Active. Books.
Again,
Books.
that has
Page.
been about
4 of
20
58.
minutes for...
Wednesday, March
Time is
3rd.
it?
1:03 p.m.
Yeah, it's been
Wednesday,
about 20
March
minutes,
3rd.
So you may want to consider taking a break. If you hadn't had lunch yet, maybe have lunch and come back for the next chapter. There's this chapter, and the last chapter is 1 page, so we're very close to the end.
Regents 14. Executive summary. 14. Bookmarked.
Chapter 14
Search.
is-
Appearance. Markup. 14. Regional development and cooperation.
Regional
Heading.
development and cooperation.
Mark. Appearance.
Sounds like a good idea.
Search. Bookmark. 14. Executives. Regional cooperation already is a powerful force in the global economy. Medium evidence. High agreement. This is reflected in numerous agreements related to trade and technology cooperation, as well as transboundary agreements related to water, energy, transport, etc. As a result, there is growing interest in regional cooperation as a means to achieving mitigation objectives. A regional perspective where regions are defined primarily geographically, with further differentiation related to economic proximity, recognizes differences in the opportunities and barriers for mitigation. Opportunities for joint action on mitigation and common vulnerabilities, and assesses what regional cooperation can and has already achieved in terms of mitigation. Regional cooperation can provide a linkage between global and national/subnational action on climate change and can also complement national and global action. Section 14.1.2, 14.4.1. Regions can be defined in many different ways depending upon the context. Mitigation challenges are often differentiated by region, based on their levels of development. For the analysis of greenhouse gas, GHG, projections, as well as of climate change impacts, regions are typically defined in geographical terms. Regions can also be defined at a supranational or subnational level. This chapter defines regions as supranational regions. Subnational regions are examined in Chapter 15. 10 regions are defined based on a combination of proximity in terms of geography and levels of economic and human development: East Asia, China, Korea, Mongolia, East, economies in transition Eastern Europe and former Soviet Union, EAT, Latin America and Caribbean LAM, Middle East and North Africa, MNA, North America, USA, Canada, NAM, Pacific Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development 1990, Japan, Australia, New Zealand POECD, South, East Asia and Pacific, PAS, South Asia, SAS, Sub-Saharan Africa, SSA, Western Europe WU. Where appropriate, we also examine the category of least developed countries, LDC, which combines 33 countries in SSA, 5 in SAS, 9 in PAS, and 1 each in LAM and the MNA, and which are classified as such by the United Nations based on their low incomes, low human assets, and high economic vulnerabilities. We also examine regional cooperation initiatives through actual examples that bear upon mitigation objectives, which do not typically conform to the above-listed world regions. 14.1.2. There is considerable heterogeneity across and within regions in terms of opportunities, capacity, and financing of climate action, which has implications for the potential of different regions to pursue low-carbon development. High confidence. Full stop. Several multi-model exercises have explored regional approaches to mitigation. In general, these regional studies find that the costs of climate stabilization for an individual region will depend on the baseline development of regional emission and energy use and energy pricing policies, the mitigation requirement, the emissions reduction potential of the region, and terms of trade effects of climate policy, particularly in energy markets. 14.1.3, 14.2. At the same time, there is a mismatch between opportunities and capacities to undertake mitigation. Medium confidence. The regions with the greatest potential to leapfrog to low-carbon development trajectories are the poorest developing regions, where there are few lock-in effects in terms of modern energy systems and urbanization patterns. However, these regions also have the lowest financial, technological, and human capacities to embark on such low-carbon development paths, and their cost of waiting is high due to unmet energy and development needs. Emerging economies already have more lock-in effects, but their rapid build-up of modern energy systems and urban settlements still offers substantial opportunities for low-carbon development. Their capacity to reorient themselves to low-carbon development strategies is higher, but also faces constraints in terms of finance, technology, and the high cost of delaying the installation of new energy capacity. Lastly, industrialized economies have the largest lock-in effects, but the highest capacities to reorient their energy, transport, and urbanization systems towards low-carbon development. 14.1.3, 14.3.2. Heterogeneity across and within regions is also visible at a more disaggregated level in the energy sector. High confidence. Access to energy varies widely across regions, with LDC and SSA being the most energy-deprived regions. These regions emit less CO2, but offer mitigation opportunities from future sustainable energy use. Regional cooperation on energy takes different forms and depends on the degree of political cohesion in a region, the energy resources available, the strength of economic ties between participating countries, their institutional and technical capacity, political will and the available financial resources. Regional cooperation on energy offers a variety of mitigation and adaptation options, through instruments such as harmonized legalization and regulation, energy resources and infrastructure sharing, e.g., through power pools. Joint development of energy resources, e.g., hydropower in a common river basin, and know-how transfer. As regional energy cooperation instruments interact with other policies, notably those specifically addressing climate change, they may affect their ability to stimulate investment in low-carbon technologies and energy efficiency. Therefore, there is a need for coordination between these energy cooperation and regional/national climate policy instruments. In this context, it is also important to consider spillovers on energy that may appear due to trade. While mitigation policy would likely lead to lower import dependence for energy importers, it can also devalue endowments of fossil fuel exporting countries, with differences between regions and fuels. While the effect on coal exporters is expected to be negative in the short and long term, as policies could reduce the benefits of using coal, gas exporters could benefit in the medium term as coal is replaced by gas. The overall impact on oil is more uncertain. 14.3.2, 14.4.2. The impact of urbanization on carbon emissions also differs remarkably across regions, high confidence. This is due to the regional variations in the relationship between urbanization, economic growth, and industrialization. Developing regions and their cities have significantly higher energy intensity than developed regions, partly. Regional development and cooperation. Chapter 14. 1086. Chapter 14. Regional development and cooperation. Due to different patterns and forms of urban settlements. Therefore, regional cooperation to promote environmentally friendly technology, and to follow sustainably socio-economic development pathways, can induce great opportunities and contribute to the emergence of low-carbon societies. 14.3.3.
Okie doke.
App switcher, Safari, files,
Pictures.
figure files, done,
Pictures.
button, done, list, button, rows 12 to rows 20, rows 30, _11.2, _12.1, _13.4, _13.14.1, PNG image 200, done, button. _14.1, a photo containing a diagram.
Well, that's not very helpful, is it?
Done, list, button. Rows 12, rows 20, rows 30, _11.1, PNG rows 4, _13.2, _14.1, _14.2, done,
There we go.
button.
Okay.
_14.2, a photo containing a diagram, possible text, PLS.
Oh, possible text. There you go.
Wednesday, March 3rd. 1:13 p.m.
Oh.
Wednesday, March 3rd.
Sorry. Wandering around.
Apps with Safari, books, active, books, page. In terms of regional, due to different in terms of consumption and production of GHG emissions, there is great heterogeneity in regional GHG emissions in relation to the population, sources of emissions and gross domestic product, GDP, high confidence. In 2010, NUM, POECD, EAT, and WU, taken together, had 20.5% of the world's population, but accounted for 58.3% of global GHG emissions. While other regions with 79.5% of population accounted for 41.7% of global emissions. If we consider consumption-based emissions, the disparity is even larger with NAM, POECD, EAT, and WU generating around 65% of global consumption-based emissions. In view of emissions per GDP, intensity, NUM, POECD and WU have the lowest GHG emission intensities, while SSA and PARS have high emission intensities and also the highest share of forestry-related emissions. This shows that a significant part of GHG reduction potential might exist in the forest sector in these developing regions. 14.3.4 Regional prospects of mitigation action and low-carbon development from agriculture and land use change are mediated by their development level and current pattern of emissions. Medium evidence, high agreement. Emissions from agriculture, forestry, and other land use, are larger in Asia, SAS, EAS, and PARS combined, and LAM than in other regions, and in many LDC regions, emissions from are greater than from fossil fuels. Emissions were predominantly due to deforestation for expansion of agriculture and agricultural production, crops and livestock, with net sinks in some regions due to afforestation. Region-specific strategies are needed to allow for flexibility in the face of changing demographics, climate change and other factors. There is potential for the creation of synergies with development policies that enhance adaptive capacity. 14.3.5 In addition, regions use different strategies to facilitate technology transfer, low-carbon development, and to make use of opportunities for leapfrogging. Robust evidence, medium agreement. Leapfrogging suggests that developing countries might be able to follow more sustainable, low-carbon development pathways and avoid the more emissions-intensive stages of development that were previously experienced by industrialized nations. Time and absorptive capacity, i.e., the ability to adopt, manage, and develop new technologies, have been shown to be a core condition for successful leapfrogging. The appropriateness of different low-carbon pathways depends on the nature of different technologies and the region, the institutional architecture and related barriers and incentives, as well as the needs of different parts of society. 14.3.6, 14.4.3 In terms of investment and finance, regional participation in different climate policy instruments varies strongly. High confidence. For example, the Clean Development Mechanism, CDM, has developed a distinct pattern of regional clustering of projects and buyers of emission credits, with projects mainly concentrated in Asia and Latin America, while Africa and the Middle East are lagging behind. The regional distribution of the climate change projects of the Global Environment Facility, GEF, is much more balanced than that of the CDM. 14.3.7 Regional cooperation for mitigation can take place via climate-specific cooperation mechanisms or existing cooperation mechanisms that are, or can be, climate-relevant. Climate-specific regional initiatives are forms of cooperation at the regional level that are designed to address mitigation challenges. Climate-relevant initiatives were launched with other objectives, but have potential implications for mitigation at the regional level. 14.4.1 Our assessment is that regional cooperation has, to date, only had a limited positive impact on mitigation. Medium evidence, high agreement. Nonetheless, regional cooperation could play an enhanced role in promoting mitigation in the future, particularly if it explicitly incorporates mitigation objectives in trade, infrastructure, and energy policies, and promotes direct mitigation action at the regional level. 14.4.2, 14.5 Most literature suggests that climate-specific regional cooperation agreements in areas of policy have not played an important role in addressing mitigation challenges to date. Medium confidence. This is largely related to the low level of regional integration and associated willingness to transfer sovereignty to supranational regional bodies to enforce binding agreements on mitigation. 14.4.2, 14.4.3 Even in areas with deep regional integration, economic mechanisms to promote mitigation, including the European Union, EU, Emission Trading Scheme, ETS, have not been as successful as anticipated in achieving intended mitigation objectives. High confidence. While the EU ETS has demonstrated that a cross-border cap and trade system can work, the persistently low carbon price in recent years has not provided sufficient incentives to motivate additional mitigation action. The low price is related to a number of factors, including the unexpected depth and duration of the economic recession, uncertainty about the long-term emission reduction targets, import of credits from the CDM, and the interaction with other policy instruments, particularly related to the expansion of renewable energy as well as regulation on energy efficiency. As of the time of this assessment in late 2013, it has proven to be politically difficult to address this problem by removing emission permits, temporarily, tightening the cap, or providing a long-term mitigation goal. 14.4.2 Climate-specific regional cooperation using binding regulation-based approaches in areas of deep integration, such as the EU directives on energy efficiency, renewable energy, and biofuels, have had some impact on mitigation objectives. Medium confidence. 14. 1087. 14. Nonetheless, theoretical models and past experience suggest that there is substantial potential to increase the role of climate-specific regional cooperation agreements and associated instruments, include economic instruments and regulatory instruments. In this context, it is important to consider carbon leakage of such regional initiatives and ways to address it. 14.4.2, 14.4.1. In addition, non-climate-related modes of regional cooperation could have significant implications for mitigation, even if mitigation objectives are not a component. Medium confidence. Regional cooperation with non-climate-related objectives but possible mitigation implications, such as trade agreements, cooperation on technology, and cooperation on infrastructure and energy, has to date also had negligible impacts on mitigation. Modest impacts have been found on the level of emissions of members of regional preferential trade areas if these agreements are accompanied with environmental agreements. Creating synergies between adaptation and mitigation can increase the cost-effectiveness of climate change actions. Linking electricity and gas grids at the regional level has also had a modest impact on mitigation as it facilitated greater use of low-carbon and renewable technologies. There is substantial further mitigation potential in such arrangements. 14.4.2. Despite a plethora of agreements on technology, the impact on mitigation has been negligible to date. Medium confidence. A primary focus of regional agreements surrounds the research, development, and demonstration of low-carbon technologies, as well as the development of policy frameworks to promote the deployment of such technologies within different national contexts. In some cases, geographical regions exhibit similar challenges in mitigating climate change, which can serve as a unifying force for regional technology agreements or cooperation on a particular technology. Other regional agreements may be motivated by a desire to transfer technological experience across regions. 14.4.3. Regional development banks play a key role in mitigation financing. Medium confidence. The regional development banks, the World Bank, the United Nations system, other multilateral institutions, and the Reducing Emissions from Deforestation and Degradation, RED, plus partnership will be crucial in scaling up national appropriate climate actions, e.g., via regional and thematic windows in the context of the Copenhagen Green Climate Fund, such as a possible Africa Green Fund. 14.4.4. Going forward, regional mechanisms have considerably greater potential to contribute to mitigation goals than have been realized so far. Medium confidence. In particular, these mechanisms have provided different models of cooperation between countries on mitigation. They can help realize joint opportunities in the field of trade, infrastructure, technology, and energy. And they can serve as a platform for developing, implementing, and financing climate-specific regional initiatives for mitigation, possibly also as part of global arrangements on mitigation. 14.5. Apps with Safari, files, figure under Safari, files, figure under files, done, figure underscore 14.2, done, list, button. Figure underscore 4 point, rows 12 to, rows 20, rows 34, figure underscore 11.22, rows 40, figure underscore 13.5, figure underscore 14.15, figure underscore 14.2, figure underscore 14. Done, button.
Pardon me.
Figure underscore 14.15. A bar graph with multicolored bars and text.
Ooh. A bar graph.
Done. List.
I'm
Button.
not sure I should be.
Figure underscore 4 point, rows 12, rows 20, rows 30, figure underscore 11.22,
Gotta
P,
realize
rows 40, figure underscore
I'm
13.5,
doing all
P,
this with my eyes closed.
figure underscore 14.16,
Technically.
P, figure underscore 15, figure
Yep.
underscore 14.
I mean,
Done.
they're not closed.
Button.
But you know what I mean.
Figure underscore 14.16.
Put
A
your mind in
screenshot of a group of
interesting place.
multicolored circles with text on a white background.
All right.
Possible text.
Anyway.
App switcher. Safari.
We're on
Books. Active. Books.
to the very last chapter.
Books. Page. 6. Library. Button. Library.
Of the last
Back
report.
button. 14 regional develop. 15 national. 16 cross-cutting investment and finance. Toolbar. Page.
And it's
Page.
about investment.
4
So
of
if that's
40.
your thing, you should be happy.
Total climate
only one
finance
page, though.
16. Executives
Whoop.
16.
It's called
Bookmark. Search. Appearance. Markup. 16 cross-cutting investment and finance issues. Heading.
Cross-Cutting Investment and Finance Issues. And if you know what that means, then this chapter is for you. I haven't got a clue.
Markup. Appearance.
listened to this chapter.
Search. Bookmarked. 16. Executive sum. For the first time, an assessment report by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, contains a chapter dedicated to investment and finance. These are the chapter's key findings. Scientific literature on investment and finance to address climate change is still very limited and knowledge gaps are substantial. There are no agreed definitions for climate investment and climate finance. Quantitative data are limited, relate to different concepts, and are incomplete. Accounting systems are highly imperfect. Estimates are available for current total climate finance provided to developing countries, public climate finance provided to developing countries, and climate finance under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, as well as future incremental investment and incremental cost for mitigation measures. Climate finance relates both to adaptation and mitigation, while under the scope of this chapter, estimates of future investment needs are presented only for mitigation. Section 16.1. Total climate finance for mitigation and adaptation is estimated at $343 to $385 billion US, 2010/11/12 US per year using a mix of 2010, 2011, and 2012 data, almost evenly being invested in developed and developing countries. Medium confidence. The figures reflect the total financial flow for the underlying investments, not the incremental investment, i.e., the portion attributed to the emission reductions. Around 95% of reported total climate finance is for mitigation. Medium confidence, 16.2.1.1. The total climate finance currently flowing to developing countries is estimated to be between $39 to $120 billion US per year using a mix of 2009, 2010, 2011, and 2012 data. 2009/2010/2011/2012 US, medium confidence. This range covers public and private flows for mitigation and adaptation. Public climate finance is estimated at $35-49 billion US, 2011/2012 US, medium confidence. Most public climate finance provided to developing countries flows through bilateral and multilateral institutions, usually as concessional loans and grants. Climate finance under the UNFCCC is funding provided to developing countries by Annex II parties. The climate finance reported by Annex II parties averaged nearly $10 billion US per year from 2005 to 2010, 2005 to 2010 US, medium confidence. Between 2010 and 2012, the Fast Start Finance, FSF provided by some developed countries amounted to over $10 billion US per year, 2010/2011/2012 US, medium confidence. Estimates of international, private climate finance flowing to developing countries ranged from $10 to $72 billion US, 2009/2010 US dollars per year, including foreign direct investment as equity and loans in the range of 10 to 37 billion US dollars, 2010 US dollars and 2008 US dollars per year over the period of 2008 to 2011. Medium confidence 16.2.1.1 Emission patterns that limit temperature increase from pre-industrial level to no more than 2 degrees Celsius require considerably differ. End patterns of investment. A limited number of studies have examined the investment needs to transform the economy to limit warming to 2 degrees Celsius. Information is largely restricted to energy use, with global total annual investment in the energy sector at about 1,200 billion US dollars. In the results for these scenarios, which are consistent to keeping carbon dioxide equivalent, CO2 concentration in the interval 430-530 ppm until 2100, annual investment in fossil-fired power plants without carbon dioxide capture and storage, CCS, would decline by 30, median, -20% compared to 2010, 2 to 166 billion US dollars during the period 2010 to 2029, compared to the reference scenarios. Limited evidence, medium agreement. Investment in low emissions generation technologies, renewable, nuclear, and electricity generation with CCS, would increase by 147, median, plus 100% compared to 2010, 31 to 360 billion US dollars per year during the same period. Limited evidence, medium agreement, in combination with an increase by 336, 1 to 641 billion US dollars in energy efficiency investments in the building, transport, and industry sector. Limited evidence, medium agreement, frequently involving modernization of existing equipment. Higher energy efficiency and the shift to low-emission energy sources contribute to a reduction in the demand for fossil fuels, thus causing a decline in investment in fossil fuel extraction, transformation, and transportation. Scenarios suggest that the average annual reduction of investment in fossil fuel extraction in 2010 to 2029 would be 116, -8 to 369 billion US dollars. Limited evidence, medium agreement. Such spillover effects could yield adverse effects on economies, especially of countries that rely heavily on exports of fossil fuels. Model results suggest that deforestation could be reduced against current deforestation trends by 50% with an investment of 21 to 35 billion US dollars per year. Low confidence. Information on investment needs in other sectors in addition to energy efficiency, e.g., to abate process or non-CO2 emissions is virtually unavailable. 16.2.2 Resources to address climate change need to be scaled up considerably over the next few decades, both in developed and developing countries. Medium evidence, high agreement. Increased financial support by developed countries for mitigation and adaptation measures in developing countries will be needed to stimulate the increased investment. Developed countries have committed to a goal of jointly mobilizing 100 billion US dollars per year by 2020 in the context of meaningful mitigation action and transparency on implementation. The funding could come from a variety of sources, public and private, bilateral and multilateral, including alternative sources of finance. Studies of how 100 billion US dollars per year could be mobilized by 2020 conclude that it is challenging but feasible. 16.2
Challenging but feasible.
Public revenues can be raised by collecting carbon taxes and by auctioning carbon allowances. High confidence. Putting a price on greenhouse gas, GHG, emissions, through a carbon tax or emissions trading, alters the rate of return on high and low carbon investments. It makes low-emission technologies attract more investment, and at the same time it raises a considerable amount of revenue that can be used for a variety of purposes, including climate finance. These carbon-related sources are already sizable in some countries.
That's good.
App switcher, Safari, files, figure underscore file, figure underscore files, done. Figure underscore 14.16, done. List, button.
I know. 'Cause
Figure underscore rows 12 rows 34 to 46 figure underscore 11.23 rows 40 figure underscore 13 figure underscore 15.1 PNG image 100 done button. Figure underscore 15.1 a bar graph with text and numbers.
Hopefully it's a useful
Done.
bar graph.
List button. Figure rows 12 to rows 23 to 35 figure underscore 9.3 rows 34 rows 40 figure underscore 14 dot figure underscore 14 figure underscore 15.1 figure underscore 15 dot done button.
This is the final chapter that I'm doing.
Figure underscore 15.2 a screenshot of a graph with text and numbers. Possible text.
I'm just going to show you all these
List.
figures
Button.
now.
Figure underscore 4.2. Rows 12. Rows 20. Rows 34. Rows 40. Figure underscore 13. Figure underscore 15.1. Figure underscore 16.1. Figure underscore 15.2. PNG image 56 kilobytes.
Oh, there's only two of them. Oops. Wrong chapter.
Figure underscore 16.1. PNG
16.
image 130. Done. Button.
It's been a long day for all of us, okay?
Figure underscore 16.1. A group of blue boxes with white text on a white background.
Oh, wow, cool.
Possible done.
Blue boxes.
List. Button.
Why don't I actually show you the images that are related to this chapter?
Figure underscore 16 dot. Figure underscore 16 dot. Figure underscore 16.3. Figure underscore 16.2. PNG done. Button. Figure underscore 16.2. A screenshot of a graph with text and numbers.
Oh, we're back to graphs.
Possible text done.
As I
List.
said before,
button.
I'm doing this with my eyes closed, so
Figure underscore 4.3. Rows 12. Rows 30. Rows 46. Figure underscore 14.2. Figure underscore 15.2. Figure underscore 16.2. Figure underscore 16.3. PNG image done. Button.
5 images.
Figure underscore 16.3. A screenshot of a graph with multicolored bars and text.
Yum.
Done.
Multicolored
List.
bars.
Button. Figure underscore 4.2. Rows 12. Rows 46 to 57 of 64. Figure underscore 14.1. Rows 50. Figure underscore 16.1. Figure underscore 16.3. Figure underscore 16.4. Done. Button.
I guess it's too late to say you're supposed to take breaks during the images, right?
Figure underscore 16.4. A screenshot of a graph with text and numbers. Done.
Okey-doke.
List.
And
button.
last but not least.
Figure underscore 4. Rows 12. Rows 20. Rows 30. Rows 46 to 57 of 6. Rows 53. Figure underscore 16.2. Figure underscore 16.4. Figure underscore 16.5. Done. Button. Figure underscore 16.5. A group of blue and yellow cards with black text on a white surface. Possible text. Cost risk adjusted return. Decrease. Camera. Take pic. 0 people. Take picture. Photo and camera mode. Zoom. Take pic. Camera chooser.
That
back. One face centered.
Look at that.
Voiceover off.
I'm only going to be on here for a moment because I just wanted to reappear before I disappear. Congratulations if you've got through this chapter. It is the 10th section of the 6 reports that I've covered in the past 12 months. I started them in January of last year, so 12 to 13 months in any event. It's been a pleasure and a challenge and very gratifying. I've learned a great deal as I have had to go through these, and I hope you have as well. I'm going to go back to Safari here in a moment. However, keep in mind the Understanding the IPCC meetups. I actually missed it this month because of the things I'm doing, but if you want to talk about this stuff, or if you want to write to me, there's links for that too as well, as you know. Oh, I turned it off.
Voiceover on. Weather can. Landscape. App switcher. Camera. Dog. 5 books. Files,
Well,
camera.
let's
Close camera.
close the camera,
Closing
just
files,
to be sure.
Books. Safari. Files. Figure underscore 6. Books. Current action. Docs. Files.
Oh, I closed it. That was clever.
Safari.
My big
Safari.
finale, and I'm going to mess it up.
Home.
Okay.
Tool. The Working Group 3
There we go.
contribution to the IPCC's 5th Assessment Report, AR5, assesses literature on the scientific, technological, environmental, economic and social aspects of mitigation of climate change since 2007 when the 4th Assessment Report, AR4, was released. Heading Level 3.
So, reminder again, this report, this Working Group 3 report, was released in 2014.
AR5 Climate Change 2014, Mitigation of Climate Change. Heading Level 1.
However, still relevant.
Toolbar. Back. 4-0. A talking game at Barefoot Freelance. Car.
Feel free to drop me a line. All the contacts are in the comments section on the YouTube page.
Toolbar.
And as I already mentioned,
skip to more discussions, photos, members, events, about, button, share,
button.
organized by Kerry G.
Oh well,
Lee.
there you go.
Actions available.
Thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you have a great year.
Screen recording in progress.